Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here, and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. This week it's the brand new 1/72nd scale Supermarine Spitfire Vc starter set from Airfix. So join me in this video as I take a look, my first look inside this box, and see what this new toolkit is like. Cool, so on the front of the box we've got this rather attractive image of the Spitfire having a dogfight with an FW190 over here. It's got the normal red aesthetic that Airfix have got, but over here we've got a nice little image of the model, and we can see we've got a display base included, so that's nice, that's a nice thing to see. At the top here it tells us that it's a starter set and that paint and a brush and cement is all included. Normal Airfix starter sets, and I've got one here, they were of the ilk of having them visible, but I guess, and I'm a big fan of the fact that they've now moved it to the inside of the box, I guess the reason why they've got rid of this was because it's very easy for people to remove the paints and glues without actually taking the contents of the kit. So that's a much more secure way, putting them all inside the box. And I suppose it probably saves on packaging as well because it's using less plastic. So yeah, I'm a fan of that. But anyway, let's flip over to the back and see what we've got there. And these are the painting and decal placement instructions. We've got the actual size dimensions there, so you know how big it's going to be when you've finished it. It tells us that we've got different paints down here. 30 is a dark green, 33 is black, 64 is a light grey, and 106 is a slightly darker grey. We've got some warnings down here. But it tells us that this Supermarine Spitfire is from a number 303 Polish squadron at RAF Norfolk in 1942. So it's a personal mount of one of those Polish pilots. The long edge of the box here has some more warnings along with the contact address for Hornby/Airfix and a little symbol there saying we've got cartograph decals as standard. It tells us that the model, design and tooling dates from 2020. So even though it wasn't released until 2021, there was a bit of a delay. This is effectively one of the most recent brand new kits from Airfix. And then the shorter edges only feature the same sort of information that's on the front. And then up here on the top edge of the box, we've got some information about the actual Spitfire. We've got some information about the length and the number of pieces. It tells us it's skill level 1, which is a starter set I'm expecting it to be. It should be really easy. And we've got a flying hour here. If you don't know what to do with these, take a look at my flying hour video, but basically it's a coupon. Cut it out, keep it, and you might be able to get free kits with that in the future. Cool. So, one thing I forgot to mention is the product code is A55001. It's the first one of its particular series. So, let's get inside and see what we've actually got. So I'm going to break tradition and not look at the instructions first. I'm actually going to look at the glues and paints. There we go. So we've got our paints here. Number 30 is the green. That is 106, 64 and 33. So we've actually got a slight mix of pots there. This is the older pot design with the sort of flappy lid, and they put the sticker on the top, whereas these three have all got the newer design of pot, and the printing is on the side, and it doesn't have the sort of flappy design. Literally the pot lid comes all the way off. I am led to believe that Humbrol, which is the manufacturer of the paints, as included in Airfix starter sets, have sort of changed their formulas over the last couple of years, because I've noticed them become a little bit better. But Humbrol paints have got a bit of a reputation for being a little bit grainy and a little bit hard to use, but they aren't terrible. They are sort of like your bargain basement modelling paints, but to be honest, you should be able to use all 4 of these, and there is enough included in order to get your model finished. We've got some Humbrol poly cement, and whilst it does do the job and it will glue your kit together without any real problems, this particular version of cement can be quite thick. It's a bit more gel-like rather than a liquid, so you just need to be a bit more careful when applying it. However, I do use this for certain elements of my modelling, but I generally prefer to use something else like Tamiya Extra Thin. Again, I've made a video about that sort of stuff. And then we've got a Humbrol Airfix paintbrush. This is a number 2 thickness, it's synthetic, and generally I don't have any dramas with using these. The only problem with including just the one paintbrush in a set like this is that it doesn't really cover off what you want it to do. It's not really great for doing large areas because it's quite small, but it's too big to do fine detail. So I would suggest going out and getting yourself some more paintbrushes. So now let's take a look at the instructions, and the first thing that I'm met with is this. It's quite thin paper, but it's glossy and it's printed in colour. So these are helpful hints and tips. This has never been included in an Airfix kit before as far as I can tell, and this looks really good. Extra tools that you might want to use: nail file, tweezers, scissors, clippers, etc. Tells you to wash your parts with soapy water. You might ask why, but it's because when they mould them, they mould the parts, they use like a mould release, a bit like when you bake a cake and you use butter to grease your tin. That will be left over when they pop the parts out, so give it a wash, make sure there's nothing left on there so your paint sticks. Tells you how to look for your numbers, cut them away, sand them down, drill holes if you need to, use tweezers for small parts. This is really good. This is the kind of stuff that should be included in a starter set. And they've laid it out really easy to follow as well, and the pictures are really well drawn. So, you know, fair play to Airfix. Like on the older starter sets, like this one here, for example, they just come with normal instructions, whereas this has come with actual, like, beginner-friendly, helpful advice. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And speaking of the normal instructions, let's take a look. So, this is to the normal format on the front. We've got information at the top about the real one, some warnings down the bottom. Turn over the page. We've got some more information. Make sure you read it. Assembly instructions there, some helpful hints and tips. And then we've got a sprue map. Airfix don't normally include sprue maps. I guess they've been paying attention to certain reviews and advice by the modelling community, because now we've got a sprue map, so that's great. You can find out which part you need by looking here and then going to your sprue and finding it. And then coming over here, we've got the same sort of key to symbols that we normally have, but they're much more simplified. They're much easier to follow, I would say. And as we come through the construction, it tells you which parts you need to cut out from the sprue map, and it is in colour and tells you where you need to put the glue. That's crazy. Like, they've literally thought of pretty much everything in here. So let's have a look. We're starting off by gluing the fuselage together. Then we add bits of the, what's this? This is the propeller hub, a spinner part. Put that into the engine. Add the engine cowling top. Wings, pilot's chair goes into the bottom there. Add your tail surfaces, add your fuselage, add the details underneath the aircraft, and then you get to the point which is quite standard with aircraft kits. You can either have the wheels raised or lowered. I'm probably going to go for raised because if we turn over, you'll see we've got a display stand. So if we've got a display stand, it is, in my opinion, a good idea to raise the wheels up, especially if you're going to include the pilot, because then you can have it like it's flying. And I quite like that. I did, in an earlier video, probably a few years ago, say about how I was building a vintage kit, and the Airfix vintage kits, you know, from the 70s and 80s, they used to come with display stands included, clear ones usually, and they got rid of them because it wasn't cost effective to maintain that. But it's nice to see them coming back. But without a display stand, it's very hard to display your models in a flying pose. You pretty much are stuck with putting your wheels down. But anyway, so we've got our pilot figure. They've just painted him green there, so I'm probably going to go off that and do my own thing, paint him up a little bit better. Cockpit Canopy looks like it slides in and is held in place by gluing in the aerial. So that, does that make it easier? That's debatable. I think I'll see how it is when we come to build that. The propeller glues onto the front there, so you can paint it separately before actually adding it to the model, but it should still be free to spin. And then we get down to the end, add the decals, see the painting on the back of the packet, and that is it. So those instructions actually are really user-friendly, if I'm honest. Much more user-friendly than normal Airfix instructions. And that's saying something, because I find Airfix instructions to be some of the most user-friendly ones going, to be honest. Cool, so with that, let's take a look at the decals. As previously mentioned, printed by Cartograph, and it's not a big sheet of transfers, or water stickers as we like to call them sometimes. We've got the roundels for the wings, the fuselage identification codes, those go on the tail. We've got the band around the fuselage, and then some little insignia here. I think that's a kill counter there, and these are the Polish markings there. So it's not a big sheet. If you're new to modelling, this shouldn't take you too long. To be brutally honest, I'll probably dip the whole sheet in water rather than just cutting it up, because that will take, well, me personally, probably about 10 minutes to get all of those transfers on. But yeah, they look really nice, up to the usual standard from Airfix. So yeah, let's look at the final thing, the main part of the kit. And it is the plastic parts. So in this bag, which is still sealed, let's get that open. We should have 3 grey ones and 1 clear one. And we know that because we've already seen the sprue map on our instructions. 3 grey plastic sprues and 1 clear one. Everything seems to be there. Nothing seems to have fallen off the sprues before I've received it. So let's take a look at them and see what we've got. The plastic is moulded to the normal standard from Airfix. It's reasonably hard, it's quite dense, it's a little bit, I'd say a little bit flexible, but it's not bad. This is the display base here. It's sort of the silhouette with an Airfix logo on the wings. We've got a pilot. I've got a bit of a thing for pilots, like they're either really well moulded or they're not. So let's see, zoom in on that, come on. Yeah, it looks okay. I have seen more detailed pilots, but he's generally not too bad, so I would use that inside the plane. We've got our chair here. We've got the actual arm for the display stand. It's got some slightly weird, is that mould release? I think that might be mould release on there. It feels a little bit greasy. We've got the propeller there. That's not too bad. It's all moulded in one piece, so there's no faffing about. You can just literally glue it on. We've got the spinner parts there as well. There doesn't seem to be any flash, but I'd be very surprised if there was, seeing as it's a brand new tool. Let's look at the next one. We've got our tail surfaces and wings, and the recessed details on here are shallower than the old Airfix Spitfire Mark 1 kit. It's not as, they're not like trenches, to be brutally honest. The detail is okay. It's up to the usual standard from Airfix, but to be brutally honest, if this is a brand new tooling, and I know people are going to say it's a starter set, so you're not expecting it to be greatly detailed, but you know, like Eduard Spitfires have considerably more rivet detail on them, and I think Airfix could have got rivet detail on this. It wouldn't have made any difference to the assembly of the model, I don't think. But generally, it looks okay. The cannons here are moulded in place, but they don't look like you have the option for changing out the armament on this. This being a Mark C, that's a universal wing, so they could swap the ammunition, the armament out. They could change like to having 4 cannons or just the 2 cannons and the machine gun. So that option hasn't been presented in this kit. The last sprue then, we've got some cockpit detail on the inside, framework wise. I'll be surprised if there wasn't. We've got our wheels, and they've just moulded the lugs in there, so you can't get them in the wrong way around. They look okay. The mould quality is alright, but the detailing isn't phenomenal. It is a simplified kit. You can tell that just by looking at it. There aren't that many parts, and the parts that are there, so for example like the landing gear legs here, they've got them moulded on at the actual leg onto the cover. But it does look very crisply moulded. I would be very surprised if there were any fit issues with that. And then finally, the last part is the clear part. It is crystal clear. There's no scratches on there that I can see. It does seem, I don't know, a little bit sort of wavy on the inside. but I guess that's just a result of the moulding, because it's a bubble canopy type of thing, isn't it? So it sort of balloons out, so it should be sort of like that, I suppose. But yeah, looks okay. So generally, looking pretty good for a brand new tool from Airfix, especially as it's a starter set. So I think it's probably time to wrap this one up. 3 grey sprues and a clear cockpit canopy, a helpful hints and tips sheet, a well printed sheet of decals, easy to follow instructions, a selection of accessories, which all comes contained in a very nicely illustrated box. So looking at this then, how much would I be expecting to pay today? Well, on the Airfix website it's £10.99. I think the prices have gone up a little bit. I don't know if I paid just a straight up tenner for this, I can't remember. But, you know, as to be expected in the current climate of things, prices have been going up. Is it worth that? I suppose it remains to be seen. Being a brand new tooling, Airfix have got to recover their costs for the tooling. So it does sort of make sense that they sell it in line with other starter sets, because let's face it, this kind of starter set, yes, I know I paid £1 for it because it was second hand, it was found in a charity shop, but it should technically be about a tenner in the shops normally. But you would quite often be able to find these for half that price. And comparing this to one of these, and I actually have a built version here. Now, this Airfix Spitfire was quite simple to build. The Airfix Spitfire Mark 1 isn't exactly a difficult model to build, and it doesn't have a great deal of parts. But I think that looking at it, the Mark 5C should be considerably easier to build than this one. But yeah, I did have some reservations about this, and I was sort of questioning why are we releasing a new starter set when the Spitfire Mark 1 starter set works. Well, I guess I can see now sort of where Airfix were thinking with that. They wanted to make it more simplified, easier to access for beginners, and I'm on board with that. I get that. Like, traditionally, Airfix starter sets have just been the normal kit, but with paints included. That's it. It's like, hang on, I'll show you what I mean. Like, back when I got into modelling, this is the exact kit that I got started with when I managed to find one. It's the Hawker Hurricane Mark 1/2, and it's just a normal box, a normal kit box with a few extra paints and a brush. And to be brutally honest, there aren't even enough paints in there to do the full paint scheme, so it was just a bit ironic. But Airfix sort of carried that on, and like this is just a normal Airfix Spitfire Mark 1. You can buy these with different paint schemes without the paint and glue, but this starter set will never ever be anything other than a starter set. It's the way it's been designed. The tooling is much more simple than the other versions of kits, and to make that point, Airfix made another Spitfire Mark 5C. It's the same mark of aircraft, Spitfire Mark 5C, but this is not a simple starter set version. This comes with different options and things. This is a completely different tooling. Now, my question is why? Why did they make a Spitfire Mark 5C as a starter set and another Spitfire Mark 5C as a non-starter set? They have two different toolings from the same year for the same aircraft. My question would be, why not retool this as a Mark 5B and then have the Mark 5C as your proper more difficult model to build? But yeah, anyways, I think I had my reservations about this, and I voiced them previously on a few different things before the kit came out. I was saying, what was the point in designing it to be more simplified? But yeah, no, I'm on board. I get this. I like this kit. It is going to be a good introduction to modelling if you haven't done it before, and I think Airfix have gone quite a long way to try and encourage new modellers with this particular design. It would be nice to see some other kits. I know they have got some different starter sets going, but I hope in the future we do see more starter sets like this to help get more modelers into it. But that being said, I don't really want to see double handling. I don't want to see them make a starter set version and a more difficult version of the same aircraft. Have it a bit varied, because let's face it, if you've already built a starter set Spitfire Mark 5C, You might then want, I don't know, a Spitfire Mark 9 or a Mark 5B or something else. Don't make two the same. But that's just my only concern or criticism. I guess I'm going to see how this one builds up in the near future. I am probably going to do it as a starter set build, so I'm going to be using the included paints and brush. I'll be brush painting it, so if you'd like to see that, let me know down in the comments. I'm not going to use my airbrush, I'm going to build it as a beginner would. But I do reserve the right to use extra paints and glues as I see fit. But yeah, what do you think of this kit? Do you agree with me? Do you think it would be a good introduction to scale modelling? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please click that like button and don't forget to subscribe with notifications on so you never miss a modelling video. Quick shout out to my patrons and channel members on YouTube and over on Patreon for the extra support they give the channel. Thanks to these guys for helping me to make consistent content for you all to watch. To find out more, check out the links in the description. Finally, one last thing to say is a massive thank you to you, and I will see you on the workbench again next time.